I hope you're enjoying sitting down because that's about to get a lot more painful because of the paddling. That's actually a half-finished charcuterie board. Oftentimes in life, there are realities that we find difficult to confront, realizations that we hope are actually fake, truths that we pray are lies. But we cannot progress in life and in writing without accepting the things we may find hard to accept. So to help you do that and to provide a proper ego bruising, I've assembled 5 harsh writing truths that you may not want to hear. If you do want to hear and see more of me, why not subscribe to my channel so you'll get more videos like this one. Alright, harsh truth number 1, you're probably insecure about your writing. Insecurity is built out of a couple different things. It starts with an often denied deep understanding that you are lacking in some way. Underneath it all, you know that your writing doesn't pass muster, that your skills aren't all you want them to be. That's the first part of insecurity. The second part comes along with the denial of this, our external denial of this. Inside we feel inferior, so outside we project an air of competence. We build an ego around the image of ourselves we want to have, but know that we don't have. The ego then goes out into the world to defend us. It does things like criticize other people, it boasts for us, it helps maintain this image that we've built up of ourselves. This is why critique is often so difficult. When someone highlights the flaws in our writing, it risks revealing the underlying weakness that we possess. That's when our ego comes to the defense. We lash out at the other person, we undermine their skills, we devalue their input, we say that they don't know what they're talking about, we ignore their suggestions, we deflect and deny the problems in order to avoid our own insecurity. It is very hard to overcome insecurity. Most people walking around out there are loaded with it, especially writers who tend to be a very emotionally volatile group. Insecurity can drive you to improve, but most people get caught up in denial and so never do. They ignore advice because accepting advice means accepting their insecurity and letting the ego lose some of its power. You are probably insecure on some level about your writing, and denying that is often just a sign of more insecurity. Harsh truth number 2, you can follow all the rules and still write a novel that nobody likes. Writing can be brutal, and while there are no shortage of people out there telling you the best way to do things, following their advice doesn't guarantee success. Writing a great novel is not just about checking a bunch of boxes. My characters do this thing, my plot does all these things. It doesn't really work that way. There are warehouses and warehouses of unsold books out there and mountains of rejection letters sent to authors who did all the right things and still didn't find success. Part of this is because you need to capture more as a writer than just writing well. There is an additional vacuous element to fiction that is hard to quantify and difficult to deliberately create. The most important elements to get right in a novel are also the most complex. This is why a well-written novel can still flop. There's also an element of luck and timing to this, two things that are often very much outside of your control. There is a formula to write good, readable fiction, but following that formula doesn't guarantee that you'll create a great novel. Harsh truth number 3, you can never capture the entire complexity of a human being in your characters. You live in a world that is fundamentally shaped by you. Your perceptions, your beliefs, your understandings all affect how you interpret and perceive the world around you. Every event of your life has created a unique coloring to the world. You have a viewpoint that has been shaped by every single second of your existence. The nuance and complexity present within this vast trove of information, coupled with the interwoven narrative constructed by your mind, is unfathomable in its breadth and scope. Most people go their entire lives just trying to understand themselves, what they want, what they respond to, who they are and who they want to be. Now recognize that this astoundingly complex system that is your mind is not only repeated in every single other human being alive at the present moment, but also shaped by every human being and every living creature that has existed since life began on Earth. And realize that every single one of these complex past ancestors has influenced all of those who come after them in a massive game of butterfly effects and temporal telephone that has stretched on for millennia across millions and millions of square miles. Taking all of this into account, you, the writer, are trying to decide what color t-shirt your protagonist's little brother likes to wear. The most well-developed character that you can ever hope to create will be but a fragile outline of even the most boring, flat, real-life person. I don't know what percent of the real-world complexity of a human being that you can capture in your characters is, but I'm fairly certain it's less than 1%. Harsh truth number 4. Harsh truth number 4, no one cares about your writing as much as you do. Between the ideation, writing the script, shooting, editing, thumbnail, uploading, programming the bots to watch and comment on it, I will probably spend several hours making this 10-ish minute long video. A few thousand people will see the thumbnail and move on. Of the people who do click on it, many will click away after the first 10 seconds, and on average, people will probably watch about half of this video. And many of those who watch it will quickly move on to something else, another video, mere moments later. This is the paradox that creatives live in. Despite spending hours of your life creating something, you are still but a moment in people's day. If you are lucky enough to have someone read your novel, it will never occupy the same real estate in their mind as it does in yours. It is incredibly rare for people to become obsessed with the world you've created to the point where they analyze and think about it for years. And the people who do that are but a small minority of readers. Sure, my life has been massively impacted by books I've read. Many novels have changed my perspective on things in irreversible ways. But even with the small number of impactful books, I imagine that the time I've spent thinking about them pales in comparison to the amount of work their authors put into them. You are the biggest audience for your work. It will affect you more than it will affect other people in all likelihood. And lastly, harsh truth number 5, you can make writing different, but not necessarily better. I think a lot of writers have this feeling, perhaps unconsciously, that the more times you revise something, the better it becomes. The relationship between the quality of the work and the number of times it's been revised is probably asymptotic. Like the first time you revise something, it gets way better. Second and third revision might not improve it all that much, and by the fourth revision, you're probably just rearranging deck chairs. Revising is no guarantee of improvement. It is incredibly difficult to evaluate the quality of a piece of writing. There are just so few objective measures beyond, well, that sounds better than what I had there before. I've heard writers on The Simpsons talk about how, in the early seasons at least, there was like a 9-month lag between when they would write an episode and when it would actually air, because animation takes so long to do and things like that. And what this gave them was an unusually long time in which to do rewrites throughout that months-long process. What would occasionally happen is that they would write a joke at the start of production of an episode that seemed really funny, but after 9 months of hearing it, it would get old and they would start to have doubts about it and they would rewrite a new joke, something that might not actually have been as good as the original one. This is a constant problem that you can run into when you're revising and editing work, because you've become familiar with how a scene is written or you've become familiar with a certain element of your plot, it starts to lose its impact. And this loss of impact might not necessarily because it was poorly written or doesn't work, it's just because you've seen it so many times that it's lost its shine. As a writer, you may spend a lot of time changing things only to make them different, but not necessarily better. You will go through your entire writing career with very little certainty about whether you're actually improving things. Sometimes you'll know, but sometimes you won't know. Sometimes you'll change things for the better, sometimes you'll change them for the worse. Writing is an inherently uncertain medium. Unlike my certainty about the end of this video, which is right now. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this video and found the advice in it useful. If you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out all my other writing advice related videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.